Tracy Powell. I am the founder and CEO of the Pivot Fund.
So what inspired you to start the Pivot Fund?
So that's a loaded question. I think a lot of things. The trajectory of the news industry and the journalism industry, the contraction of and loss of reporters across the country, the persistent problem of underserved communities across the country with credible quality information. Yeah, I think a lot of different reasons probably led me to this place. But also more immediately, I saw where you started seeing nonprofit dollars going into supporting journalism, but they were still missing communities of color. Right. Supporting organizations that have never focused on communities of color, who often parachuted into communities of color and produced misleading narratives about those communities. Organizations that produce news maybe about communities of color, but not for them. That's a huge problem. So I wanted to support those outlets that were on the front lines, producing news and credible news and information, fact-based information, quality information for and about communities of color. That's what we prioritize at Pivot Fund. But yeah, we support community-based news outlets. It's our first and best opportunity to rebuild trust with the communities and audiences we serve. And so that's where we start. We start local.
So where did your passion for storytelling begin?
Oh, I'm a journalist. I've always been a journalist. Even when I was a kid, I wanted to be a reporter. I mean, I used to get my little pad and pencil and go interview members of my family, trying to find out the scoop, right? And so that I could go tell somebody else. My mom laughs about that all the time because I always wanted to share what I knew. I wanted to find out why something happened. I was very, very curious. So I wanted to find out what was happening, why it was happening, and what was it all for? And so I would report it, and then I would, tell family and friends, and so yeah, I always knew I wanted to be a journalist. I didn't want to be anything else. And of course, once I got the journalism degree, went to journalism school and all this stuff, but woke up, really quickly to the fact that it wasn't all communities who were being served, who were finding out about what they needed to learn about, what they needed to know, and in order to better navigate their lives. And so, one thing led to another. I was, a journalist who found her way into philanthropy. And so this is the best of both worlds. I get to support news organizations that are doing exactly what they should be doing, holding power to account, but also informing their communities. And I get to make sure, people get the scoop.
So far, you've helped a few stations already. What are some of the things you do to help them?
So we have invested in 7 news outlets so far. And so they range. There's a TV station in LaGrange. There are a couple of social media-based news outlets who are now, one is turned into producing a newsletter and has developed a website. Another is developing a newsletter, but they also already syndicate content to Spanish language radio. So they really run the gamut. There's one legacy news outlet that during the pandemic shifted to becoming digital only, and we're supporting a collaboration with the largest Black family-owned radio network in the state, because we understand that Black communities often trust DJs more so than they just trust any other information source. So that's an important collaboration to have. and to support. We want to meet people where they are already getting information. We want to disrupt some of the disinformation out in the atmosphere right now. So yeah, we provide initial capital, capacity building capital, so that they can go hire the staff that they need to help them scale audience, reach, influence. And then we layer those capacity building dollars, we layer that with technical support. So that could look like anything like we have a relationship with Letterhead, which helps develop newsletter products. So they consult with these grantee partners to create newsletter products. We leveraged our partnership with the Center for Cooperative Media in New Jersey to help lay the foundation for stronger and better journalism collaborations among these organizations. These are the kinds of things that we do. We also help them. We identify the kinds of talent and skills that they need so that they use those capacity dollars to the best, to most optimally in terms of hiring people with the right skill sets to come in and support the organizational development that they're trying to create. So anything from hiring a digital sales manager. One of our folks just hired a digital sales manager for the very first time, helping them, identify a newsroom talent, editing talent, reporting talent, helping them write job descriptions, helping them access, technology that's going to, anything from a content marketing system, CMS, to a content management system or audience development software. We've worked in the past with Google, providing access to their Google Consumer Insights suite. So those really, really important tools that you need to reach and grow audience. That's what we help them with. Tools and resources to help them generate new revenue. We provide that additional value add service.
I was looking up your website. A word that I saw a lot was empathy. How important is empathy in journalism, especially community journalism?
Journalists often miss the story, or they miss the real story. I think the biggest part of our job as journalists is getting to and telling the truth, right? Disseminating truth. And we often miss the mark because we lack that ability to understand what it's like to walk in another person's shoes. We often lack, we don't have the similar educational background. We're not from the same kind of class background, socioeconomic background. And so it's hard for us to relate to other folks, right? And so when we tell our stories, those stories are incomplete or rendered untruth or untrustworthy because it lacks that kind of empathy, that understanding of what it's like to walk in somebody else's shoes, to understand the challenges they're dealing with, and also the solutions that they've had to come up with out of necessity. We miss that nuance, and I think that's really important for a journalist to have in order for you to be a good journalist.
Are you more positive for the future of journalism?
I'm a generally positive person anyway. I'm a realistic person, but I think every journalist, we're very we are realistic, but we all secretly are optimistic, or else we wouldn't be able to do this job.
Right.
And so I think, there are opportunities. There are opportunities for us to get this right by supporting news and information needs for underserved communities. Black and brown people are the rising majority in this country. In some places, they are already the majority. And so if you are not informing them, if you are not engaging those communities, if you're not engaging communities, period, then you are destined to fail. So I think investing in the kinds of outlets that we support, that's the future, because that's the future of our country. The browning of America is happening, no matter how many people want to try to stop it. It's already underway. And so if you're not reaching those communities today, if you're not reaching those people today, then success is not in your future. It's just not. That means even in terms of our democracy, our democracy, we're at this tipping point. We're still at this tipping point. And if we don't get this right, we're in a lot of trouble.
When I was researching you, I was very fascinated by the fellowship at Harvard and all these education backgrounds. How important for the future journalism is the combination of media and academics to work together to find, get rid of the status quo journalism?
So research is very, very important. If you don't have the data, you cannot make change. So you need the data in order to create change. And so that's what that fellowship at Harvard was about. I conducted a study looking at what kind of impact current funding was having on BIPOC news media in particular, and then meeting the information needs of BIPOC communities. I think they go hand in hand. There's very, very little research in terms of what communities of color need in terms of news and information. Very little research. Very little research in terms of about funding and how we can have greater impact in journalism and philanthropy, philanthropy. And so, doing that kind of research, that kind of data mining, the kind of investigative journalism about ourselves, looking at our own industry, I think is very, very important in terms of not replicating a system that doesn't work, or replicating a system that we already have that doesn't work.
What are some of the things that motivate you in general?
I think what gets my blood boiling or gets me excited again is just what got me excited when I was younger. And that's helping people be in the know, learning things, helping them figure out, helping them know what they didn't know, right? Helping them, empowering people. They, we often talk about, who are the leaders in this field or that field.
Right.
It's really the power lies with people. When people are their own change. And so we want them to be better informed, so that when they're exercising that change, or when they're trying to have an impact, we want them to have the right kinds of impact. And the only way they can do that is if they have the right access to the right kinds of information, accurate fact-based information. I mean, we see look at what's happening with Twitter right now. That was kind of like this public square.
Right.
A discourse and dialogue happened. You had access to smart people, even with all the other, I know Twitter was not perfect. You had disinformation on that platform. You have a lot of trolls on that platform, but you also had access to information. And that's why it was so important for the billionaires, to kind of shut it down, right? Because they don't always want a level playing field. It's not in the powerful's best interest for the field to be level. And so leveling that playing field is probably what gives me my rush. That's what motivates me the most. journalism, again, is to hold the power to account. I think there's this, when I was a kid, I worked at a Black newspaper called the Atlanta Daily World, and the publisher there he had something on the wall. And he would always talk about this too. It's our role as journalists to comfort, to afflict the powerful and comfort. What was it? What was that? It was to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the powerful, something like that. I have to look it up for you, but I've carried that with me my entire life. Like, we are not supposed to give comfort to the powerful,
Right.
but it's those who have the least that, information can be a comfort to. If they have access to the information, then they can help change the trajectory of their own lives. But they have to have access to that information. Information is power, in other words. And so helping to put that power in people's hands and helping them showing them how they can access to information can change how their lives, the lives that they're living. I think, again, that's what really keeps me in this business and doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, you have to be very passionate, and you definitely are. But I like what you said with Twitter. I mean, there's a lot of either nonprofits or small communities. That's the only way they can get their message out. And,
Right.
the focus may be too much on, the politics or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the only way. You have a lot of independent community media that uses social media because, one, it's free, right?
Yeah.
They don't have to pay for it. And more importantly, the people they're trying to reach don't have to pay for it. So they became these little gathering spots for people, these small independent media organizations, to reach their communities. I mean, their whole news cottage news industry that's only based on social media. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I mean, they solely exist on social media. That's how they reach their community. They built communities and built audiences using Facebook groups or on their IG. I mean, and so to put all that power in the hands of one billionaire who then abuses it.
Right.
And it is very, very disruptive, not only to the users on that platform, but the audiences they serve. Again, you're absolutely right. It's their only way that they get information about what's happening in their neighborhood or their community.
So where do you want to see the Pivot Fund in the next 3 to 5 years?
So we're growing. I'm trying to grow very intentionally. I don't want to be a fast growth organization because we want it to be lasting. And so we want to have a great deal of impact. So I see us probably heading to the Midwest in 2023, and again going to becoming more of a national, growing our national footprint in the next 3 to 5 years. That's we want to in the next 5 years we hope to have raised $30 million, and we hope to have solidified partnership with grantee partners, 37 I should say about 40 grantee partners in the next 3 to 5 years.